Hello, and welcome to the Business and Pleasure podcast, the show that discusses what it's really like to be a digital nomad. We talk about the ups and the downs, the lessons learned, the big discussion about whether you can really have it all. Today's episode is a little bit different. Normally, we talk to experienced digital nomads, but today we have Connor Flynn. Connor is hoping to become a digital nomad very soon. We'll chat about what excites him about this lifestyle, his expectations, and why he wants to take that leap of faith. It's going to be a good one. Definitely give this episode a listen if you're toying with the idea of becoming a digital nomad. Welcome to the show, Connor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Let's just get straight into it. What do you currently do and where are you based at the moment?
Yeah. So I am based out of Seattle, Washington, in Western United States. And just a little bit of background. I was working at a 9 to 5 job for about a year after college at a public relations agency. And in June of this year, so about 4 months ago, I think, I took the leap and quit that job to go full in on the freelance life because I was kind of already starting to build up I had one client at that point. So what I do is mostly email marketing and SMS marketing for e-commerce brands. And so I had one client and I always wanted to be like my own boss and have a flexible schedule. I just decided to take the leap, and for the past 4 months, it's been good ever since then.
That's amazing. That's great that you just went for it and it's gone well so fast.
Yeah.
And what is it about the digital nomad lifestyle that's caught your attention and is sort of making you toy with the idea of going for it and leaping into that as well?
Yeah. So the main thing is I've just always wanted to travel like as much as I can. That's probably my top goal in life, is just to travel to as many countries as I can. Hopefully it would be cool to go to like every continent. We'll see if
Yeah.
that happens. But so yeah, that's one of the main reasons why I, wanted to also take the leap to become like my own boss and work on my own schedule, is because I knew I had that top of mind of wanting to travel as much as I can. And I know people who do and are able to do it with a typical 9 to 5 job. It's just a lot more challenging. I guess a few years ago too, I stumbled across a few people on like Instagram and YouTube, and that's kind of what got me into travel to begin with. Just like seeing all these beautiful places. I don't know if you've heard of Sam Cold. He's like a YouTuber who just posts a bunch of cool travel videos. And that's kind of what got me started. I'm like, oh, I would love to do this as a bit of inspiration. But yeah, my main vision and goal in life is just to travel. And so I always keep that top of mind when I'm, working towards that.
You're setting up a great route to then go off and start being a digital nomad and traveling on your own time and on your own calendar, essentially, which is brilliant. And
Yeah.
it's nice that that's always been your goal. And what are your general feelings towards changing your lifestyle and sort of switching it up a bit? It is a big change, but I guess it sort of helped that you have left the traditional sort of 9 to 5 and you're slowly moving towards, I guess you're moving towards it, the lifestyle anyways. But yeah, what are your feelings towards that? Have you got any expectations at the moment?
Expectations. I know there's always things that come up. And so it's hard to have like expectations in the sense of, I know like the main thing is it's going to be scary and uncomfortable at first. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm drawn to it so much, is because the more, you step out of your comfort zone, like it's going to be, I'm naturally kind of more of an introverted person. And so I know it's going to like force me to get out of my comfort zone and meet new people and just like, new cultures and languages and everything like that, which is going to be tough. But, so I guess the expectation is it's going to be tough at first, for sure. I think, speaking and like hearing from the other experiences of people who have been in similar situations, but I know it helped me grow as a person. And that's kind of one of the main things or one of the main reasons why I want to do it so much, on top of just like traveling and seeing as many places as I can. But other than that, a lot of people have these digital nomads have a lot of like very I've seen a lot of like strict schedules, like wake up at 5 a.m., do all these things and stuff. That's never been me. So we'll see. But I think it'll definitely help me and push me out of my comfort zone and yeah, just become like more of a independent, hopefully
Yeah.
more extroverted person. I don't know.
I think you're doing the right thing to really push yourself out there. And that's so true. Like you do see, like, oh, I got up at 5 a.m. and did a hike and then got onto work and then explored this thing. And I think what I really learned from it is it's all just learning and it's a lot of trial and error. Like at the beginning, I was really like, oh, well, I want to see this and then I'll get to work. Or I was very like airy fairy with it. And then I really found my way with it. And then it can change. And then this happens and that happens. And it's almost just being okay with that. But I think as well, it's so exciting. It sounds like you're open to basically everything, which is the best way to be, I think, when you're starting out. That's sort of how I was. I was like, yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll just go with the flow. And I think that is you enjoy it more, I think. You're not like going in with any crazy expectations really.
Yeah.
And you're just seeing what happens, which is great.
Yeah. I think it's the same with any big change in your life too,
Yeah.
because from going from a 9 to 5 job to being my own boss, there were so many growing pains, I guess you could say, and so many changes of things that I'm starting to get more of the routine in. But even like 4 months into the journey, it's still been like I'm still learning how to be, disciplined, create my own schedule and stick with it because no one's holding me accountable other than me. So I think it's a lot of the same things for digital nomads, like traveling, especially when you have so many different things you could do other than just working on like your
Yeah.
your job and stuff like that. So it's definitely like finding the right balance and finding what works for you.
When we spoke offline, you mentioned you're currently in Seattle and your family are from the Seattle area. How do you feel about leaving Seattle and, experiencing places and being away from where you grew up? How do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
I think it'll be tough at first, especially to leave like family and friends who are still here. And just because I've always lived here I'm 23, so I've lived here my whole life for the past 23 years. And it's like, I love the area. Don't get me wrong. Seattle and Washington State will always be my home. There's so many great, like nature, just the people and the environment and stuff. It will always be my home. And I could see myself definitely coming back like in later on in life. Like, I think I want to come back and, you know, settle down and start a family around this area. But I
Mm,
think it'll be tough at first. That would be the main thing is like leaving family and friends will be hard at first and just being on my own. And I'm slowly like over the past few years, I've slowly learned to enjoy like having my own company in a way. But I know that brings out like when you're overseas and completely you can't like see your friends or family or anything. Like it is a
mm.
different type of being alone. And so I think I also think my mom will probably miss me the most as she will be like say all these things about like, oh, it's dangerous or like blah blah blah. But obviously parents just want what's best for you. I think
Yeah.
that'll be the hard part. But at the same time I am excited. Like I've always thought of moving eventually because I'm at this point like a few years out of college and kind of, independent. And I've always loved the idea of like moving to Southern California. I don't know if you've been, but I love San Diego area. It's like beautiful. I can see myself living there. So the idea of traveling and moving somewhere else has always been kind of like something I want to do, but it does bring like a
Yeah.
whole new layer when it's a completely different country.
It's exciting for sure. And how I'm assuming you've brought it up with your parents. So how did they first react when you mentioned it to them?
Well, I actually haven't brought it up to many
Ah,
people. So that's the kicker.
this is the exclusive.
Yeah, that'll be an
Just
tough,
send them this
interesting conversation.
episode.
Yeah, seriously. um, so yeah, I think when it comes time to more planning, because I haven't really planned anything at all. I know I want to travel a lot more next year and kind of start getting my feet wet in like the digital nomad
Yeah.
life next year, I think. So as it gets closer, I will have to have that conversation and we'll see what they say. But
Do you have any sort of inkling of how they will react, or is
I,
it sort
I
of, we'll just see?
yeah, I think my dad is typically the more supportive. Not, I wouldn't say my mom's very supportive. Don't get me wrong. Both my parents are. I'm just thinking of the fact that when I made the decision to quit my job and like muster up the courage to tell my parents, that was also a tough conversation. And my dad kind of was able to relate to me more just because I asked him like when I was on the call with him, I'm like, have you ever thought of like, going off and starting your own business? Cause he's been like a hardworking guy, worked at a corporate job his entire life. And he's like, more times than I can count. I just like never did. And so I think
Yeah.
he related to it a bit more. My mom was a bit more surprised and was like, "Oh, like just make sure you are able to do the like health insurance, like all these benefits and stuff, you know." So I feel like that's
All the
kind of
logistics.
yeah, yeah, seriously. I think that's how a lot of maybe not a lot of parents, I wouldn't say that, but like my relationship with my parents has always been. My mom is like kind of more protective in a way, just thinking about, like you said, logistics and what if this goes wrong? What if this happens? What if blah blah blah? Yeah, I guess with that in mind, it'll be interesting, but I think it'll be a kind of go a similar way if I could guess.
Yeah, it'll be a good conversation. I have faith for you. You'll have to let
Yeah,
us know as well. Keep us
definitely.
posted on that. Like, I'm very lucky, but my parents have always traveled and they sort of brought us up on travel. So I don't think they were surprised when I was like, yep, I'm just gonna go abroad and travel and work and make it work. But I think when I started having the conversation of like, being a digital nomad and what that was, that had to be explained because I think um work-wise, they're more traditional. So yeah,
Definitely.
that was
That's
new
that's how
vocabulary for them.
my parents are too, are a bit more traditional. And I think digital nomadism is still a pretty new concept to a lot of people. Like with the internet, like people will try to explain like what they do. And to some people who are more traditional and like have a corporate job their entire life, grandparents, let's say, they have no idea what you're saying. Like, how does that work? How do you make money? Blah, blah, blah. And so I think it's the same with being a digital nomad is like people who don't really have too much experience with making a living on the internet and like being your own boss, kind of like we do. It's a bit hard to explain it to someone who like doesn't really have that experience.
It's an interesting one for sure. And what are you most excited for when it comes to starting your digital nomad journey?
I think meeting new people and meeting people similar positions as me, because
Mm.
I know obviously depending on where you go, um, it's easy to meet people who are also like digital nomads or traveling and or came from like a similar background of like just quitting their job and wanting to travel, which has always been what I wanted to do. So I think that's the main thing is just meeting like-minded people and just being more around different cultures and seeing how different parts of the world operate. Just because, especially in my case, like I've traveled, but I've lived my entire life. I've lived in
Yeah.
like the same 20-mile radius my entire life, which you kind of become into like in some ways in a bubble in that case, just to see like it's different to travel somewhere versus settle down and live somewhere for months at a
Mm.
time. So I think that'll be interesting too. And something I'm excited to see is just like being accustomed to different cultures, new people, different experiences that like you wouldn't have or I wouldn't have in where I live.
I think the digital nomad community is brilliant as well. Like even just online on Twitter, I've met over the internet loads of other digital nomads, and it's just so nice being able to talk to people who get it and they get the ups and the downs and really understand what you're going through. Like the majority of people I've had on the podcast, I've met through Twitter, or I've met in a co-working space in this country, in a co-working space in this country. Like it's a really nice community to be a part of.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll definitely integrate yourself into it very quickly, and it's constantly changing as well. So yeah, the community is brilliant, and like you said, you'll be almost popping your bubble. That sounds weird. Popping your
Yeah.
normal bubble and getting out
And
there. And
routine and everything.
yeah, like it's a big change. It's changing a bit of everything, but it's very beneficial. It really
Yeah.
opens up your eyes. Like for me, it's the best thing I've ever done. And it's challenging and there are ups and downs, but overall you'll start seeing a change in everything very quickly, I think, which is
Yeah.
also nice. Like it's just the reason I love it is just because and like working for yourself as well. It's all just so exciting and anything could happen. And I think that keeps it interesting.
Yeah. Definitely. It's
Yeah.
definitely like I was talking with someone a few weeks ago about this, like working online, working for yourself. It's like no one, like if you didn't want to do this, like you could literally stop tomorrow. Like no one's
Yeah.
holding your hand and like making you do this. It's all because you want
Yeah.
to do it and stuff. And it's the same with, traveling and working online or being a digital nomad. Like it's exciting because you're in control of your life, which is, I think, something that, like, if you're stuck, especially at a job that you hate, like some people love their job, some people settle, and some people like hate their typical corporate job. I think it's especially something if you like are not doing work that you enjoy or you're like feeling stuck at your job. Like it's hard to feel in control of your life because you're like, oh, I got to get up again. Like I feel stuck. And that's
Mm.
honestly kind of how I felt for a few months, like earlier this year, is just like I was starting to burn out. I was coaching soccer part time, youth soccer part time, which I loved. It was just so hard to juggle, like working at a job that wasn't really fulfilling. I didn't enjoy too
Mm.
much. Doing that on top of it, long hours, and like knowing that like I had my freelance client and knowing that I wanted to grow my freelancing business and have all these big visions and dreams and stuff. It just was a lot. And I felt stuck in a way. And like the only way to get out of that was to like step away, which I did. Like I stopped coaching soccer. I quit my job just to go full time freelancing. And it was obvious, it was terrifying, like in the moment. But looking back, it's like, it really helps you, like any big decision like that helps you grow a lot.
Almost like coming to a crossroads, isn't it? You're like, what's the best
Yeah.
thing? What do I want? But yeah, I'm so excited for you. Like I could like chat about it all day, becoming a
Yeah.
digital nomad and like traveling because like for me, it really has been the best thing I've ever done for myself. Like you were saying, it's fully down to you. So say if you go to a city or a country and you're not feeling it, you're not stuck there. You can just go to another place or,
Yeah.
working for yourself. Again, that comes with its own challenges, but it's down to you. And if you're working with a client you don't really get on with, or like whatever it is, you can mix it up and change it, which again I think makes it exciting as well.
At the end of the day, it's your
Yeah.
life. And I feel like a lot of people don't forget that, but they just feel like they can't make this big decision to just like do a complete 180 and change their life. But like I heard a quote that I like is like, it's never too late to rediscover yourself or like change your life pretty much. And yeah, it's just like exciting in the sense of like you can do whatever you want, really. Like obviously there's like bills to pay and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
logistics, like what we are talking about.
Real
But
life.
yeah, but really, I mean, like you can do whatever you want. You can be whoever you want. I know it sounds cheesy and cliche, but that's kind of why it's exciting. Is like you can, yeah,
Yeah.
like you're saying, just like decide to not work with this client, or like if you don't like a country or a place, like I could move right now and like drop everything and move right now. I'm just wanting to ease my way into it and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's exciting in that way.
it's useful to remind yourself every now and then, and this is like my big issue. It's useful to remind yourself every now and then that it's also fine if it doesn't work out. So from a business sense, but also from like a travel sense or whatever it is, like I put a lot of pressure on myself. I was talking to my parents about this yesterday. I put a lot of pressure on myself and I think, oh, well, if this doesn't work out, I'm a failure. And I'm like very dramatic with it. And I think, well, and I was talking to them and they're like, no one else is putting this pressure on you. You're putting it on yourself and you're
Yeah.
living exactly the life you've wanted to live. Like you're living essentially your dream and you're enjoying it. But you being like, putting all this pressure on yourself, you're taking away the enjoyment and you're on the track of almost like ruining it for yourself.
Hmm.
And they were like, if it doesn't work out, you'll figure something else out. And, if you're in wherever and you're not getting on and you lose everything client wise or whatever tomorrow, you can easily get a flight home. And I'll always, very lucky, I'll always be welcome in
Yeah,
my parents' house. But I think because like with it's sort of down to you, you can make all your choices and all of that. I think sometimes you can also get a bit wrapped up and lost in that. That's
definitely.
just something from my experience and what I'm currently feeling at the moment. Yeah, it's
Is
sort of like almost seeing both sides to it, isn't it?
anyone who is their own boss and has like a bit of entrepreneurship in them has felt that way. Like I've put so much pressure on myself, which recently I've had to like take the time to remind myself that like, okay, I'm nowhere near where I want to be like in life, but also looking back a year ago from now, like I'm so much further than I was. So you got to
Yeah.
take the time to like appreciate how far you've come and be proud of how far you've come, even if you're not where you want to be.
That's the thing. I know, that's the thing. Because with me, I don't really haven't put any, like, time limits on it. Like, from that sense, I'm not putting any, like, time pressures on it or anything. But I'm still like, "Oh god, oh god." Or, like, I've been really heads down for the last few months, and I told myself, "Right, after these crazy few months, I'm gonna take my foot off the gas a bit and focus on, like, a few other things." And then once I've taken my foot off the gas, I'm like, "Oh god," like, the stress, the pressure, it's
Yeah.
you feel like you can't really win, but again, it's like there's lots of ups and downs to it.
But
Keeps it interesting.
yeah, definitely. That's like the way I feel that way when I know I shouldn't compare myself to other people, but when you see like
Yeah.
online people who are like in their
Oh my
teens
god,
and
I
make
know.
like digital nomads or like I dropped out of school and made blah 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 amount of money, and it's like it's hard to not compare yourself to
I
that,
know.
which is why you gotta take the time to just be like, okay, everyone's on their own path. I
Yeah,
have made a lot of progress over the past year since these past few years. Like it's just one step at a time, kind of is the way I see it.
definitely, definitely. And like that, I completely agree with that. And then I'll have a day of where I like lose my nut and I'm like, the pressure, the pressure.
Yeah.
And then I'll have like my 5 minutes. And then the next day I'll be like, okay, great. Do, let's go
Yeah.
back to it. But yeah, I think that is, like you mentioned, it definitely comes with like being your own boss and being an entrepreneur. You're sort of, and maybe you're always sort of fighting that slightly. Who knows? We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. Only time will tell.
Um, Only time will tell. And is there anything, I know we sort of covered there, what you're most excited about, and then I sort of went on a tangent about the pressure. But is there anything that you're worried about when it comes to starting your digital nomad journey?
I think let's see, I wouldn't say worried necessarily. I think just the biggest challenge for me will be those initial like introduction phase, I guess you could say, like first few months of like being out of my comfort zone and not having any experience really traveling like
Mm,
on my own. Like I've never really solo traveled or anything. And like me, like what if I think all these like what if this happens, what if this happens? Those are always in the back of my head. Like what if I don't meet people? What if it all goes wrong? What if I can't blah 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 do this? And I think that's just part of it. Probably, I'm sure everyone's experienced that. I don't think I'm necessarily worried about anything because I know kind of going back to what we were talking about, like if the worst comes to worst, like I'll just book a flight home and
Yeah.
like come back home. And so that's how I felt with that. I weighed the options like with my job and why I quit too is like usually the worst in your head is a lot worse than it is like on paper.
Yeah.
Like like a
100%.
lot of people are like, I can't quit my job. I'll go homeless. I'll go blah blah blah. And it's like the worst comes to worst for me at least is like you run out of savings in this amount of time and you just go back to another job. Like that's not
Yeah.
that bad when you put it that way. And so I think it's the same with traveling or anything else or starting that business or, following your dreams and aspirations is if the worst comes to worst, it's probably not as bad as you make it seem in your head. So I'm just that's kind of like my life mantra recently is it's never as bad as it seems.
Yeah. That's so true though. I think, yeah, we have a habit of really building something up. And a lot of time it won't fail, but if it fails or doesn't go the way you expect, it very rarely is what you're what you're thinking about and
Yeah.
where you think it's gonna go. So that's a really good point. And I think as well, like when it comes to the social side of things, I definitely get that. When I first started traveling, I stayed in like mainly hostels because I was like, I need to get that social side and sort of
Hmm.
almost be forced into it. But then once I started chatting, like it's very hard for me to stop. But it's like building yourself up, isn't it? But the one thing that really helped me if I was like mainly in a hostel that maybe didn't have a co-working space or it was more like tailored towards travelers than digital nomads. I just thought, everybody's in the same boat. Everybody wants someone to talk to or, have a
Yeah.
conversation with. Then that really sort of calmed my nerves with it. But then this year when I was traveling, I mainly stayed in places that had co-working spaces. And that really, really helped me just from keeping my routine, but also talking to people who were in the same space and area. So they would get the sort of traveling and working. Like I met lots of travelers, which were great, but I would always sort of get slightly jealous if I knew I had to do work that day and they were like, "Oh, we're just gonna go off and, see this
Yeah.
waterfall." And I'd be like, "Damn it, I've got a deadline
Wish
today."
wish I
But
could
then
do that.
so there's sort of like pros and cons to it all. But yeah, everybody's in the same boat. Everyone wants to have a conversation. It's
Yeah.
just sort of
That's what I see
starting
too.
it.
Yeah. Is especially with like because I'd love to like when I first start out traveling and doing this is want to stay in as like hostels just because I know you always have like no matter how nervous you are to like talk to someone or something, you always have one thing in common, which you're all like traveling and like you said, trying to meet different people and start conversations. So that's already like in a lot of ways easier than starting a conversation like
Yeah.
at a bar or like in your hometown or whatever. So it's exciting and not as again, it's like not as bad as your brain makes it think or makes it seem.
Yeah. We've spoken about sort of your expectations, your worries, what you're excited about. Sounds like you're just eager to get going and you're open to whatever happens, which is great. Do you have an idea at the moment of how you're going to approach work and travel? Like lots of people approach it in like the slow madding way. So it'll be in a place for like 2 weeks, a month, whatever. Some people like jump around quite quickly. Do you have an idea of what would potentially work for you at the moment? Or are you going to sort of just test it out and see how you feel?
Yeah. So I've thought about this and I'd like to do a few different things. So I don't know if you've
Nice.
heard of World Packers or like woofing or it's
No,
like
I
a
haven't.
work exchange. So I found World Packers. It's like an organization where you in exchange for like some sort of work, you stay at some place for free, like free accommodations in exchange for work pretty much. And so that I think it was probably like a year or two ago when I found that that was really what kind of one of the things that sparked my interest in digital nomad life and just like traveling so much is because it's like, okay, you do these fun activities that like some of them are like digital marketing or writing based, which is something that like, that's why I love to do. And so it's like, you do these things for this organization or this, let's say hostel or hotel,
Yeah.
and you stay for a certain number of weeks. for free pretty much, just in exchange for work. And
Ah,
so that's one thing that I really want to do next year is kind of to test out the waters in a sense is
yeah.
um, travel with an like world packers and like go to these different places doing, you know, digital marketing or writing work or really anything just to kind of get a feel for it. And then I know like meeting a bunch of people that way, because a lot of people are doing the same programs and everything. Um, so that's one way that I want to travel. And then the other one is I have always thought it would be fun to like stay in a place for a month or so at a time, just because like when you're on vacation for only a few weeks, it's a lot different than like actually settling down and living more of
Yeah.
the local lifestyle as opposed to the touristy lifestyle, which obviously like when you're visiting a place, you want to do both. But I think the time frame of like more than just a week or two, like a lot of vacations would be like you don't get the full same experience as you do living someplace for a month or two. So I definitely want to take the more slow approach to it as opposed to just jumping from
Nice.
place to place. Like I'd like to stay. I think my top place, I don't know about, I think just top place to visit, not specifically like for digital nomadism, but country to visit in the world would be Italy. And so it'd be cool to
Nice.
stay in like an Airbnb or someplace in Italy for like a month and just kind of, feel what it's like the culture, meet people, see the local lifestyle and such. Definitely those two ways of traveling have always
Yeah.
been like top of mind.
It's so nice when you can spend a decent amount of time in a place and really embed yourself and become a local. You really see a place for what it is and you're not hitting all the tourist hotspots and, just surrounding yourself with other tourists. You can really see how a place works and really get a feel of it. I think
hmm
that's a great approach for sure. So you mentioned Italy. Where else is on your list?
So in Europe, my top three would probably be Italy, Spain, and Greece. Just they
Oh, yeah.
I mean, anywhere in Europe, like I just want to travel Europe in general, but those three are top. And then Southeast Asia for sure, especially for because I know it's such a hot spot, I guess you could say, for digital nomadism.
Yeah.
So like Bali, even though it's kind of cliche, I'd like to visit Bali, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand are probably my top three there, just to kind of like get a feel for it. They just seem so different from what I'm used to, but also
Mhm.
such a cool experience. So those are probably my top ones that I can think of. Obviously, like Central America, Costa Rica, I would like to visit, and it's a bit closer to me, but the other side of the world, definitely those ones.
Yeah, oh, you got some great ones on the list. I'm
I
so
got a lot on the
excited for
list, that's
you.
for sure.
That's good, that's good. Oh, you're gonna have the best time. And when are you hoping to take the final leap to get
I think
going?
I think next year is kind of going to be like testing the waters in a
Mm,
sense of like, that's why I'd like to do a program like World Packers next year a few times is like traveling to different places for like a few weeks and then coming back here, like still having a home base
yeah,
where I currently am. I currently live with a few roommates as well. And it's just like a lot of fun right now for me to like live with my friends and stuff because it's not always going to be that way. Um,
yeah.
so after this year, we'll see what happens because everyone's probably going their different ways. So I think next year we'll be testing the waters and then either like towards the end of next year or like early 2025, which is weird to say, but
Oh my
like
gosh.
sometime in 2025,
Whoa.
probably going like maybe full travel at least for like a few months at a time. But we'll obviously we'll see what happens.
That's very exciting. Oh, can't wait for you. It's gonna be the
Yeah.
best. And I think it's great the way you're approaching it as well. Like you're not completely like going rogue and like throwing yourself into it. You're like slowly doing it and testing out
hmm
different ways. And so I think you're approaching it in a great way as well for you. Normally we end the podcast with can you really have it all? Can you have a balance of business and pleasure? But I think we'll have to put a pause on that question and ask it to you once you started your digital nomad journey, and we'll
Yeah.
see how you feel about it.
Yeah, definitely.
And what's next for you? Obviously, you've sort of just gone into the next year, you'll sort of start testing the water a bit more. It'd be great to hear more about what you're currently working on as well.
Yeah. So I work a lot with e-commerce brands if for their email and SMS marketing. So just at this point, looking to get like a few more clients and kind of grow the business in a sense, just because it's like me right now and I'm more still like a beginner freelancer. So just growing the business, getting more clients. And then one thing that I am working on is I've talked to a lot of people on Twitter and LinkedIn who are currently in a similar position to like any freelancers. So they're beginning their freelance career, which not too long ago I was too. So I want to build like either like some sort of resource or consulting offer that helps beginner freelancers who are in a similar position to what I was just a few months ago. So working on those things and then on the business side, and then just looking to, you know, grow obviously as a person and get out there sometime next year, travel a bit more and go from there.
Amazing. That sounds great. I'm just so excited for you. I'm excited to keep in touch and see how you get on. I'm excited to hear about the World Packers approach as well, because I've not heard
Yeah,
about that before. So you'll have to let me know how you get on with that.
I definitely will. Definitely will.
Thank you so much for joining us, Connor. I'll make sure to include all your links in the episode show notes. Thank you to everybody for listening, and we'll see you again very soon.